During this hiatus between seasons 1 and 2 of The Owl House, one thing that keeps rattling my mind is what's next for Luz Noceda in her journey to become a witch. Season 1 saw her achieve two pretty big pieces of the puzzle, with glyph magic and her cloak, which is impervious to powerful spells. But what's the next step? Well, something I previously speculated and would like to expand on today is the concept of Luz receiving her own witch's staff and talisman by the end of Season 2. While that could sound too fast for the story, keep in mind, we don't know how many seasons The Owl House will run for. It could be the usual maximum Disney 4, or it could be a simple 3-act structure, needing only 3 seasons to tell the story that needs to be told, like what was recently confirmed with Amphibia. If you ask me, the Day of Unity already seems like a pretty big endgame type deal that's allegedly fast approaching, so I would buy The Owl House shaping up to be 3 seasons. And going into a 3rd season in that hypothetical, what would be more appropriate than Luz on the verge of calling herself a full-fledged witch with a cloak, glyphs, and a staff? In fact, I believe in order to master glyph magic, Luz needs a staff. Why? Let's chat, shall we? Of course, spoiler warning. If you are not caught up with The Owl House, or you don't want to know anything about Season 2, this is your chance to jump ship. With all that said, let's dive in. And if you want more Owl House content to satiate you during this wait, be sure to subscribe and hit that bell. Also, if you want to see cute pictures of my newborn cat that I keep posting on my story, in conjunction with miscellaneous cartoon ramblings, be sure to give me a follow over on Instagram at OstricVox. But begging aside, on to the theory. Luz's staff has been something set up since pretty much the beginning of the series. Despite not having a handle on anything, she's quick to utilize Ida's staff in episode 1. The idea of Luz obtaining her own staff is directly acknowledged in episode 2. Of course, the theme song itself features Luz holding Ida's staff for a brief moment as Ida reclaims it, which I always read as a tease that appears every single episode, as I would one day love to see an updated opening where Luz triumphantly steps outside of the Owl House with her own staff, and she's joined by Ida holding her own. And of course, Luz uses Ida's staff once more in the season finale, but let's hold off on that for a second. Over the course of Season 1, we learned the importance of a witch's staff, and especially their talisman, through exposition and the thrilling adventure that shed some spotlight on both Albert and the Bat Queen in Escape of the Talisman. Talisman are the most crucial aspects of a witch's staff, many of which have mysteriously been abandoned over the years. The Bat Queen's origins and owner is a future plot point that was set up to be explored at the end of Escape of the Talisman, as Luz wants to help the Bat Queen reconnect with her owner, the Queen unable to have any recollection as it's been thousands of years since she's been separated. We also had an eerier setup in the form of Bellows destroying an already broken talisman in order to extract its magical substance for his own rejuvenation. Despite not technically being living organic creatures, there's still stakes with these talisman. They can still have some form of death that directly benefits the antagonist, and that's detrimental in more ways than one. The season finale, Youngblood Old Souls, introduced how a witch's staff is very beneficial to Luz and now Ida, as Luz was able to use Ida's staff to remotely activate the glyphs she slipped onto Ida's portal, blowing it to smithereens. This is an absolute game changer for the glyphs, as when Luz first began to demonstrate spells with them, a big question was how Luz would be able to utilize the glyphs in quick combat, between having to illustrate the glyphs beforehand and actually having to make physical contact with them. Over the course of the season, we did receive a few examples of how glyphs can work both on the spot and with strategy. Luz slapping glyphs onto various weapons and objects, synchronizing with Amity to combat Prometheus with both forms of magic, and evaporating one of the vents within Bellows' castle. A moment that has yet to have direct payoff, though you can argue that narratively, it was just for demonstration's sake. Luz was also a lot more proficient with the glyphs in Youngblood Old Souls, having rather intense motivation with Ida's life being on the line. Though considering the magnitude and strength of the spells, even without the use of multiple glyphs at once, I still wonder if Luz's emotional state, her high emotions and determination, alongside a possible connection with the Isles, as seen in Adventure in the Elements, had any factor in anything. Nevertheless, now that Ida can no longer perform organic magic, As her sack of bile has run dry, Luz seems as if she'll step up to teach Ida everything she knows about the glyphs thus far, which really makes the episode The Intruder even more satisfying in hindsight, as not only was that the episode Luz figured out glyphs for the first time, but in its conclusion, Ida was fascinated by how Luz was casting these spells in the first place. Now I think Ida picking up glyphs will kickstart Luz's need to obtain a witch's staff. Ida is resourceful, shown to be someone who's always had a knack for learning, even in present day. So I have no doubts that she'll have a great handle on glyphs in no time. Even if she struggles at first from old habits dying hard. Dana already promised that we'd learn more about glyphs in all their applications in Season 2, a logical conclusion to reach from Ida having to pick up this form of magic. We've mainly seen elemental and offensive spells, but think about how many casual, non-offensive spells we saw performed in Season 1. Animating objects from afar, enlarging heads, pentagram, the list goes on. All things that, in theory, could be achieved by glyphs. Hell, I'm still waiting to see an illusion glyph. I mention all this because for Ida, having her staff on deck may make the process of learning glyphs a bit easier, activating and utilizing glyphs in various ways, much like Luz's aforementioned demonstration of the staff, which would drive Luz's need to get a staff of her own ASAP. That in itself would naturally lead to a quest for getting the Palisman and staff made, which would go hand in hand with Dana's other AMA promise of further island exploration in Season 2. I want to throw this comment into the mix, pertaining to how Palisman are made. A Palisman is our world's equivalent of a witch's familiar. They act as familiars and double as magical staffs that house their own source of power outside of a witch's bile sac. They're not all powerful, but they can do some cool stuff. Typically, a witch will carve their palisman from a special type of wood in their teens. This can either be done at school or with parental supervision. That is, if that precious resource is still around. This is painting a picture in my head that may not be spot on, but could be on the right track. Luz could really want a palisman after witnessing a Hexai peer craft one of their own. But for external factors, maybe Bump was only able to allocate so much of this wood, maybe you need to be an upperclassman like a junior or senior, she's unable to partake in such a momentous occasion. This could lead to Luz begging Ida to show her how to make a palisman. Parental supervision after all. Ida's definitely acting as Luz's mom away from mom, leading them to travel to a new part of the Boiling Isles in hopes of finding this implied to be rare material. Such an episode could give us backstory on how Ida crafted Albert, and again, a step in the direction of the Bat Queen's origin story should she get roped in. After all, if Luz wants to learn how to make a palisman, who would be a better consultant than the Queen herself? But of course, trouble would likely throw a wrench into everything. After all, if it's wood we're talking about, deforestation and Bellus's reign sounds like the exact kind of allegory the show would be all over. Now, when it comes to what kind of animal Luz's palisman would be, I can't help but to jump back to Ida being Luz's secondary mama. Ida refers to Luz as her kid. Couple this with another answer from Dana's AMA on how if we'd see any other bird-themed houses, Dana responds with the explanation that bird-themed things are typically a Clawthorn specialty. This could be a hint that we can meet other Clawthorns, either in present day or a flashback, but I think she's also hinting at something right in front of us. Luz is already an honorary Clawthorn, so I think Luz's staff would also be bird themed, much like how Ida has Albert and Lilith has a currently unnamed raven. Running through a list of bird symbolism, because my poo-poo brain is too small to think on its own, I feel like a falcon, a crow, or a swan would fit Luz well. But if this is the case, I think Dana and the team could surprise us with a bird that makes perfect sense, yet most fans wouldn't suspect. For the thumbnail of this video, I asked Bone for a falcon, as I feel longevity, victory, and nobility doesn't just reflect Luz, but the new Clawthorn family that resides in the Owl House as a whole. If Luz is considered an honorary Clawthorn, she would be keeping the family name alive long after Ida and Lilith pass in the far future, as Dana also revealed that witches and humans have identical lifespans unless witches figure out a way to live longer. The show concluding with Luz carrying the Clawthorn name, even if Ida and Lilith will be fine, sounds like the exact kind of heartwarming yet badass ending that this show could muster. But on the other hand, there's a lot we still don't know about the show, Dana's true vision and intended tone. So figuring out the endgame for our main character could still require a lot of context from things yet to come. But as always, these are just my thoughts and I want to hear yours. What do you think? When do you believe Luz will obtain her witch's staff? What do you believe her talisman could be? Let us know your thoughts in the comments below, or tweet your thoughts at RoundTableVids. And for my own thoughts, you can find me at OstricFox on Twitter and Instagram. Special thanks to Janky Bones for creating this awesome thumbnail. For more of their amazing art, you can find them on Tumblr at Janky Bones, Twitter and Insta at BoneJanky, and subscribe to their YouTube channel. Link in the description. And help the Roundtable grow by either becoming a member of this channel or supporting us over at Patreon. If you enjoyed this video, please throw it a like and subscribe to the Roundtable for more great cartoon content. Thank you for watching, and I hope you have an awesome day. OstricFox, signing out.